How many people out here watching these stories want to start their own valet company? Put it in the comments. I'll be pretty curious to see if my stories actually prompt people to be like, man, he makes a lot of money. He seems like he's having a good time. I want to start my own valet company. Well, this is going to be an episode about what it's like to be the owner of a valet parking company. Some of the pluses on being the owner of this company, I get to shape, mold, and create this company essentially from the ground up to be what it's like today. I can do everything from the uniforms to the designs and layouts of the parking lot to the style and customer service, greetings, everything. And I try to make sure it's actually the best. There are a lot of people that are out there and be like, hey, all you're doing is parking cars. And I've seen a lot of owners just hire people, throw them out there, tell them to park the cars in the corner, and that's it. What I try to do is be like, hey, you know what? You need to take that extra step and be on the other side of it as if you're the customer. I really try to push my valets to be the best that they could be. So that's something that I could sit there and go like, that's exactly the way I wanted to shape and mold it exactly. The other thing I like is the camaraderie between the valets. A lot of valets will come on board because they were recommended by one of their friends, their roommates, one of their best friends, whatever the case is. So a lot of valets are friends with each other beforehand. But the ones I really like, the ones that didn't even know each other before and have become best friends throughout time, or they hang out or anything like that. The camaraderie is something really warm, and that's something that we truly embrace ourselves. And even though it may seem minor, it's good to know that you can really depend on a person or depend on a friend. I still have some friends when I valeted for another company umpteen years ago, and I'm still friends with them today. The one I like the most, and I think it's most overseen, is the fact that we are helping our customers with a problem. All businesses are created based on essentially there's a need and we fill that need, and that's what it comes down to. So if you need something on your feet because your feet are cold, then you go buy a pair of sneakers. That's supply and demand, basically. Valet parking is kind of the same thing. There's a problem in the parking lot. You can't put enough cars in there. That's why we get hired. So I am happy that we're able, at the beginning of the night, park everybody's car so everybody can comfortably get, let's say, 100 cars in 50 parking spaces. Number two, the customer's happy, meaning the restaurant or the apartment complex or something like that, because their guests are coming inside happy. And then number three, it's just the overall experience. So it's the prestige of coming in and having someone there, almost like a red carpet event. So these are some of the things that we like, and that's what I stand back and I really, truly enjoy the experience of bringing all that stuff together. Now, number four, I bet you everybody's waiting for this. It's the money. The money is really good and the money pays well. And what's good about that is you're able to reinvest that money into other projects. I know probably quite a few. I think there's probably 10 parking companies here in Atlanta. I know probably 8 or 9 of them pretty well. Of those valet companies, most of those valet owners have other projects that they've used their valet money to create other projects, whether it's real estate, whether it's this or any type of other businesses. But they're all doing it, and that's something that we pride ourselves on. So remember, it's not always about that dollar, but it's what you do with that dollar once you get it in. So that's one of the pluses on being a valet parking owner. And the final two are, one, you have time. You have a lot of time, so really, you could take a day off if you want to. If you want to go up to the mountains, you want to go to the beach, you can really do that. If you want to go on vacation, you can do that also. As long as you have your cell phone and people can communicate with you, you could pretty much do this job from anywhere. But you do need to be hands-on. You need to have good managers that are able to get out in the parking lot if there's a problem that arises while you're not around. And the final one is truly a sense of accomplishment. You started something from the ground up. You made it what it is today. You could step back and look at it and say, you know what? I did a great job. So that's one of the things that I'm mostly proud of. But now here comes the next 5 or 6 horrible things that happens with this business. The number one thing that makes this job very difficult is the liability. Now, if something happens, anything, And I know this could be the most morbid thing, but if you run over someone or if something gets hurt or your valets are drug dealing in a parking lot, who's responsible? I am. So you're ultimately responsible. Let's say you have 50 to 100 people. You're responsible for each and every one of those 100 people that are working for you. Here's a little story. Back during 9/11, the World Trade Center in New York City back in 2001, I think the first responders went into whatever business, I think it was Starbucks, and they needed water for the people that had just been affected by the falling buildings. The employees were programmed so much that when the firefighters came in wanting water, they wanted to charge them and they really didn't want them to leave the store without paying. Now, of course, Starbucks then donated pallets and pallets and pallets of water, but the employees were just doing their job, but the negative publicity hurt Starbucks for a long time back in 2001. The same thing happens in our case. So we could train everybody the best that they can possibly be, but it only takes one mistake to really affect your company in a worse way. Remember years ago I talked about the valet that actually had 3 cars stolen and then rolled away on a skateboard? We were on the news because of that, and I was really affected. Like, this could really bring down my company because it makes us look horrible. Luckily that didn't happen, but any of these particular cases will make us look horrible, and we're completely liable for those 100 employees that are out in the field each and every time. The second issue that makes it very difficult running this job, accidents, parking accidents. They could be very expensive. Back in the day, I remember we could fix a car for $200, $300, $400. Now with all these expensive clear coats and all this, we'd be lucky to walk out with $700, $800 worth of damage. And that's what it's coming to, because a lot of these clear coats are more expensive. A lot of these Mercedes, even the simplest cars, are going to cost you $500, $600, $700, no questions asked. And mind you, I'm buddy with a lot of these body shops, but these paints are getting very difficult to duplicate. I would pray that we could only hit a black Honda from 1980. It's so easy. That would only still cost only $300, $400. But now these newer cars are so much more expensive and so much more complicated. And the simplest thing, and some of the cars are different composites. Back in the day, cars were steel. Then now they're getting into the point where they're aluminum and carbon fiber, and those are very expensive to fix. So hopefully we're not damaging any of those cars, but it's very expensive. And when that happens, that cuts into the bottom line of the company. So any kind of profit you could have in a given month can be tossed out the window on one major accident. Now, that might not seem bad, but some of the companies that are starting up and they don't have proper insurance, or a lot of people say, why don't you just go to insurance? Remember, some of your deductibles are sometimes $5,000. So either way, you're spending $5,000 out before they even fix anything else majorly on that car. So can you afford $5,000 to be written every month or every other month? It happens. Trust me, it does. So you have to be extremely careful. So I know a lot of startup companies that get hit with that kind of damage, and the first thing they say is, hey, can we get an advance from the restaurant because we have to pay for all this damage and we don't have the money to do so. So that's why it may seem like it's glorious on one side, but on the other side, yes, it's extremely expensive. The next one, and this is bad, and I am going to dive into this in other episodes, it's lawsuits and court proceedings. If you are in this industry, be prepared to be sued. You are going to get sued. You're going to get sued a lot, and it's going to cause you a lot of stress. And I hate that stress, but that's the stress you're going to have to deal with. And I'm going to talk about some of the lawsuits we have, none of the current ones, but all the ones that we've either successfully settled and or won or even litigated to the point where we were found victor moving forward. Another thing that really drives us crazy, we get blamed for everything. Everything. And there's nothing wrong with that. I accept responsibility for everything that each one of my employees do. If they are at fault, I accept 100% responsibility, and we will move forward in paying for the damages or anything else that's related to it. Now, if it's not, then also that is my job to defend my valets and say, if someone says they scratched a car and I believe that they didn't and it happened somewhere else, we will fight that, which we've spoken about in several other episodes. The final 1 and 2 is accounts receivables. In the world of valet parking, we are the last to get paid. We always say we are a luxury to most restaurants. We're not liquor, we're not food. They always, liquor, food, and all that, they get paid first. Valet parking is a luxury, we get paid last. So a lot of times our accounts receivable, sometimes net 30, net 60, even net 90 in certain cases. But that doesn't matter. I have to make sure my valets are paid each and every time. Some valet companies that are just starting out, they have a philosophy of when the valet company gets paid, then the employees get paid. I don't ever, and I've never done that in 20-something years. We always make sure there's enough funds in all of our payroll accounts to make sure the valets are paid every other week exactly the way they're supposed to be paid. Now, the final thing that is very difficult about this job is time. I know I said already on one side we have tons of time, but at the same time we don't. What sucks about our job is, yes, I wake up at 7 or 8 in the morning and I start working. I can have some free time during the day, but then back it again at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, that's when the valets start waking up and they start going to the evening shifts, and that's when we get a ton of phone calls. So again, between 4 and probably 6 or 7 o'clock, it's really boom time. And we don't really settle down until about 9, 10, 11, even 12 o'clock when everything shuts down except for our 24-hour accounts and everybody goes to sleep. So it is risky because it takes a lot of our time. We're always on call. You could be sitting there trying to have dinner, boom, the phone rings. That's something that you have to handle right then and there. So there are a lot of pluses, but there are also a lot of minuses. So again, those that wanted to start a valet company, let me know so I can talk you out of it. Just kidding. Let me know what your thoughts are. How'd you like this episode? I'll see you next time.